So the Field of Dreams game was last night, which got a lot of people nostalgic about other baseball movies, including full marks goes to Danny Parkins for this, who is co-host of Parkins and Spiegel on 670 The Score in Chicago, who tweeted the following, and this caught my eye as someone who is a huge fan of the movie Major League. Free idea at Major League Baseball. The Major League game, Brewers versus Guardians, Bob Uecker on the call. Do it on Apple TV so Harry Doyle can be completely uncensored. Bring on guests from the movie like Sheen, Snipes, and Dennis Haysbert. You're welcome. I love this idea. It's not going to be nearly as big as Field of Dreams. Looked it up. Bob Uecker's 88. I don't think he's calling a full slate of games anymore for the Brewers. But even if he wasn't a part of it, bringing back cast members to the movie, wearing the old uniforms. I don't know how they do that now with the Guardians.
That'd be great.
But I think it'd be really cool.
A lot of
to
fun.
Have something like
Very
that.
good idea. Do all the baseball movies that have
back.
Major League tie-ins.
Let's bring it all
have
back.
the kid who owned the Twins.
Little Big League.
Do that.
Little Big League night
Have
with the
him
Twins.
in the booth.
Target Field, come on down. Billy Haywood, the 12-year-old owner of the team and manager, can be a part of it. I'm for all of these movie tributes. We're going to talk to Aaron Torres next. OutKick 360. Welcome back. Second hour of OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. I'm Chad Withrow, Paul Koharski, alongside in our 6th and Peabody studios with our great partners at Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. Jonathan Hunt will be back with us on Monday. Speaking of the OutKick network, big thanks to all of our radio affiliates. If you're listening to the show, we appreciate you. We thank you. Also, the OutKick network includes Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and OutKick.com. It's that simple. Go to OutKick.com. I'm there right now. Top right of the page, there is a live link to OutKick 360. We're on every day, 3 to 6 Eastern Time, 2 to 5 Central. So now you can go to OutKick.com and find us there as well. So we love that. We want to be wherever you are, and that is the goal of OutKick 360. And those are all the places you can find us right now as our radio network continues to grow as well. Someone who knows a thing or two about radio is Aaron Torres. He is with Fox Sports Radio and does a great job there. Great Twitter follow also. And Aaron is on with us right now. Aaron, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I think I have my days on Twitter like everybody else. Sometimes I'm a little off the rails, but for the most part, I just like to have fun like everybody else. How you guys doing today?
Well, you know, Mark Stoops clearly likes to have fun also at Kentucky. What a back and forth it's been. And also it highlights, I had buddies sending me things that Mark Stoops has liked recently that's kind of taken down Kentucky basketball and comparing Kentucky football to them. Clearly a shot at Kentucky basketball when he says 4 straight postseason wins for Kentucky football. What do you think about this game that Mark Stoops is playing, but also the comments from John Calipari that kind of started all of this, saying that we're not a football school, we're a basketball school at Kentucky?
Yeah, you know, it was one of those, like, I know, like, we all want to have, like, a big, strong, crazy, huge opinion on every single topic. Like, it was one I saw, like, both sides. You know, just knowing some people down kind of in the Kentucky kind of ecosystem space. Cal has, you know, it's pretty well known at Kentucky. Like, Cal has put some stuff on the back burner to kind of help some of the other programs. But you also just can't just, like, call out the football program like that. And I don't think he did it intentionally or as a dig, but I also understand Mark Stoops' perspective. I mean, that's obviously the basketball school. Football is a second-class citizen at our school. That's probably a narrative that Mark Stoops has been fighting literally since the day he took the job. And so I think his kind of point was like, you know, it's one thing if Kirby Smart says that or Josh Heupel says that or Shane Beamer says that. But when my own basketball coach is kind of deriding me a little bit, you know, giving me a little pat on the head for winning 10 games, that's not really the energy that I need right now for the football program. So I'll be honest. I mean, I was a little surprised that he went that hard, but he was clearly upset. His assistant coaches had his back. You go on and on. The players, some of them were tweeting former players. You could tell it definitely rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Yeah,
and it opened the door for some other programs to troll Kentucky a bit. I know Tennessee posted something about, hey, we like all of our sports here. We're in every sport school with a video of their basketball championship, their baseball championship. Other schools jumped in also. I know Brian Harsin put something up there. Let's talk a little bit about Kentucky football.
Brian Harsin, you got no support, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, I didn't even see Brian Harsin. I saw the Arkansas AD put up a picture of all his coaches hanging out, but I did not see Brian Harsin. He's like, finally, somebody's off my back for 10 seconds.
Yeah,
he and Bruce Pearl, tight.
Yeah, him and Bruce Pearl posted something where their arms are locked around each other and how much they love each other and support the other program. Brian Harsin also probably, let's face it, petitioning for his next job because I'm sure he's trying to get out of Auburn after what happened last year. He'd hope for nothing more than a good season where he could bolt. Let's talk about Kentucky football, though, and just where this program is right now, Aaron. Mark Stoops has done a great job, and it's proof of if you give a guy a long enough tenure at a place like Kentucky that historically has not been a football power, good things can happen on the back end of it. What do you think about where he has this program right now and their potential this season?
Well, I think that's part of it, too. Part of yesterday's back and forth that I didn't even mention is, you know, Cal said something to the effect of, trust me, I want them to win 10 games and go to a bowl game like everybody else. And I think that was probably part of where Mark Stoops was a little bit frustrated too. Is like it felt, and I don't think that Cal intended it this way, but I think that Cal kind of Mark Stoops, intended it as the big bad basketball coach is giving the little football coach a pat on the head for going to a bowl game.
Yep.
And I think Mark Stoops, whether it's realistic or not for Kentucky to ever get past Georgia, certainly, and maybe Tennessee, depending on how things go, Florida, depending on Billy Napier, whether it's realistic for them to ever get to Atlanta or not, I don't know. But I think that they think that they are a program that can someday get there. And so, again, I think it speaks a little bit to, the comments from yesterday. But in terms of the bigger picture, what I would say is, I think all of us that love college football kind of realize this is one of the best building jobs that we've seen in college football. To your point, Chad, just like the, sort of credit to Kentucky's administration for the patience that they showed. And I think, Mark Stoops has to get some credit, not just for the wins and losses, but going in with a game plan, right? I mean, he was the guy that was like, early on, would go up to Ohio, and he obviously had a ton of ties there, but went up to Ohio and said, rather than playing in the slow, boring Big Ten, if you don't get that Ohio State offer, come down here and compete against the best teams in college football. So he had a game plan. The school gave him time. I do think it's kind of a situation where, perfect storm's a little bit overstated, but the school gave him time. He had a game plan. He had time to implement it. Obviously had a few nice breaks along the way. Now, obviously, they enter a season that I think you could argue probably the most excitement around Kentucky football that I can ever remember, certainly since I've been following the sport.
Greg Sankey wants a fresh look at the NCAA basketball tournament. How much does this scare you that the one product that is actually good as it is, that they haven't screwed up, they want to get in and screw up?
Oh, you just took the words right out of my mouth, man. Listen, I think there's I don't know if power struggle is the right word for what's going on in college sports right now, but I think there is a separation between the people. And listen, I get Greg Sankey's job, Kevin Warren's job is to make the single most dollars that they can possibly make for their institutions. The SEC was 16 with Greg Sankey, 16 for Kevin Warren. I think there's a separation between making the most possible money that you can, and at what point do you cross that line of demarcation between, okay, we can squeeze a few more dollars out of this, but it's going to hurt the product. Obviously, I think from the college football side, we've I think seen it in realignment. I don't think it's better for college football to have USC and UCLA flying 3,000 miles across the country to play not just football, but all their other sports. And I think it has a trickle-down effect to this report, if you want to call it that. I think it's a little stronger than a report, since Greg Sankey is quoted in it with the basketball tournament. It's like you said, this is a perfect sporting event. We all love it. We tune in. The ratings were through the roof. I don't have the numbers here off the top of my head, but what was it like? I think 3 or 4 of the games outrated any NBA Finals game, or all but one NBA Finals game. Obviously, with the advent of sports betting, people are more into it. We have our brackets. We don't need to screw it up. And the one thing that I'll continue to say, I know Greg Sankey made the analogy of, Ole Miss baseball was the last team in and they won the College World Series. I can't speak to how improbable that was from a college baseball perspective. That's not my area of expertise. What I can tell you, though, is, since 2007, there's been 15, 16 champions crowned. Obviously, there was one year there was no tournament. 13 or 14 of them were 1 seeds. 1 was a 2 seed. And the other 2 were I'm a UConn alum, UConn with the best player in the tournament each year. So we have a pretty clear track record. If you're not a top 5 team or have the best player in the tournament, you're not winning that thing. Now, can you get to a Final Four? Can you get to maybe even a title game like Butler? That's a different conversation. But we have no tangible data that says that there are teams that can legitimately win this tournament that are being left out. And we all know who those teams are going to be. It's going to be the 11th place team in the SEC or the 13th place team in the Big Ten. And I think even fans of those schools don't want to see those teams in an NCAA tournament setting.
Aaron, how big of a blow is it to Big Ten basketball to not be affiliated with ESPN for the first time in a long time?
It's a great question. I think the Big Ten, the brand is so strong that I don't know. Maybe from basketball, it's a good point, Chad. Maybe a little bit different from the basketball perspective as opposed to football.
Yeah, I mean,
I
football,
think,
Aaron, I like where they are because it's a very NFL-type model where they're getting all the networks involved in it. It's tough to have many issues with what they've done on the football side. I think the other sports, basketball being paramount, that's the one I look at and think, man, that's where are all these games going to go, and are they going to matter as much when you don't have the 24/7 hype cycle around every event and every game like you have provided to you with ESPN?
Well, it's really interesting because I had always, so again, I went to UConn last 2 or 3 years. UConn has been back in the Big East. And I always kind of push back on the whole narrative of if you're not on ESPN, they don't talk about you. Now, again, football is different than the non-football sports. But I felt like this past year in college basketball, that was the first time that I saw it where, Villanova obviously is just an entity unto itself. But Providence won the Big East regular season title. You would never hear about them on ESPN, on SportsCenter. You'd never see their highlights. You'd see unranked teams. You'd see highlights in February, but you wouldn't see Providence. UConn is another one. Seton Hall. I can't remember all the teams that were good this past year, but it struck me this year is like there are really good teams that are just legitimately not getting any exposure in the Big East this past year. And so I think it could have a trickle down effect. Now, what does it actually mean for tournament bids, tournament seeding? I don't know. But I will say, I think we all have some, trepidation, if you will, about certain things that ESPN does. But they are a great hype machine, especially in the college sports space. So I'll be honest, it's something I hadn't really thought about from the Big Ten non-football perspective. But it is a good point by you, Chad. I hadn't really considered it.
And UConn's the best test case there. They're down the street. They're all fans of that program. I worked there for 9 years and visited annually. If they're not covering UConn, it's against their own will, really. So that tells you how strong it is.
Yeah, and I'm not, trying to get into like a deep dive here, but I mean, I know that like women's basketball is even less mainstream than men's college basketball, but obviously you have I hate to say it in Tennessee, but the preeminent women's basketball program in America, as you said, Paul, right down the street. So I'm with you. And it's something I thought it was one of those narratives that was a little bit overblown, but I thought you really saw it this past year where, again, I forget who and what all the rankings were, but there was 2, 3, 4 teams pretty consistently all year in the top 25 from the Big East, and you barely ever heard from them on ESPN.
So Barrett Sallee, who's been on this show before, he had his ranking in both, and he does a great job. I love Barrett too. But both of us had a comment on his ranking. We're going to show it to our viewers right now. He ranked the SEC coaches ranked by who would win a fight. I'm going to quickly go through his list, 1 through 14. Number 1, Brian Harsin of Auburn. Okay, very in-shape guy. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, also same thing. Number 2, Mark Stoops 3, Kirby Smart 4, Billy Napier at 5, Shane Beamer 6, Sam Pittman 7, Lane Kiffin 8. He's already started to lose me a bit, but he really loses me now. Eli Drinkwitz at 9, Josh Heupel 10, Jimbo Fisher 11, 12 is Nick Saban, 13 Brian Kelly, 14 Mike Leach.
Jimbo Fisher's too low.
I think that he nails the final 3. I think that's the perfect order for the last 3, Saban, Kelly, Leach. But Eli Drinkwitz ranked ahead of Josh Heupel
and Jimbo Fisher,
who is a 6'2", 265-pound former Heisman Trophy runner-up. Really stuck out to me, Aaron. I know you had a complaint about the list also. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you guys probably covered Lane Kiffin. He doesn't strike me as much of a fighter.
I'm the same way. I thought he was way too high on the list when I saw Kiffin up at number 8. He is a lover, not a fighder. That's for sure.
Well, so has been reported in a lot of different places.
Yes.
And Drink, so Eli Drinkwitz, there's just something. I mean, it feels like there's very little that unites SEC fans. Maybe bashing Calipari yesterday was one of those things. I don't feel like anybody you can dislike, say, Jimbo Fisher, but hey, there's some redeeming something there. Same with whoever, fill in the blank. I just feel like everybody just not only do they not like him, like every time he talks, it's just I don't know. He's just Drinkowitz is just a weird dude. weird vibes, weird energy, a little bit of a nerd. I definitely think pretty much anyone below him on that list would push him into a locker, to be perfectly honest. I think Jimbo Fisher shoves that guy into a locker, no problem. I don't remember where everybody else was ranked, but that was one. I mean, he just, Lane Kiffin may be a lover if he's not a fighter, but at least he's a lover. Drink is just, I don't even know what he would quantify as. I do know that I'm pretty sure that if it came down to it, all other 13 SEC coaches could shove that guy into the locker if they had to, and I think many of them want to be perfectly honest.
I mean, I
With
was
that
shocked,
lightsaber.
and I think Barrett's normally got great takes on everything. I was shocked to not see him in the bottom 3 or 4 in the conference, like at best in the bottom 4, but ranked ahead of Josh Heupel and other. That just absolutely blew me away, but gave us something to talk about also, which we always appreciate. Aaron Torres always has a lot to talk about. Great follow on Twitter at Aaron_Torres with Fox Sports Radio. Aaron, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Today.
Nope. Awesome, fellas. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
We need to now rank, sports TV, radio people in a list of
Fight.
could win a fight. I thought Lane Kiffin too. Yeah, Lane Kiffin does not strike me. While he's gotten in much better shape the last 2 years, just doesn't strike me as a guy who wants to fight anyone or would fight.
I think Jimbo Fisher's pretty intense guy.
Yeah,
who could get angry and win on anger.
Right. Like if you're going to rank Mark Stoops, I think it was 3rd on the list. Then I think Jimbo Fisher has to be right there with
Stoops is on anger.
I think of Stoops and Fisher the same way.
Yeah, they'd win on anger.
One's from Youngstown, Ohio. The other one's from West Virginia. They're both about the same size. They both get very angry and animated. So I'd see both being good fighters and being up on the list, but I thought Jimbo was a little low. I'm with you on that, Paul. We're going to continue our NFL preview. We got a great rest of the hour coming your way. We're going to talk some Titans-Ravens preseason later in the hour, specifically quarterback with Malik Willis getting extended playing time last night. We'll discuss that game a little bit later, but when we come back, our NFL preview continues with the Bears and the Lions as we go into the NFC North. That's coming up next. This is OutKick 360 on the OutKick Network. We're back on OutKick 360. Chad Withrow, Paul Kuharski with you. We'll talk a little Titans-Ravens preseason coming up later in the show. Malik Willis, the rookie out of Liberty, specifically in his performance in last night's game. But right now, we're going to continue with our NFL preview as we roll through every team across the league. We're going to the NFC North now, and we begin with a team we've talked a lot about and not in good terms, the Chicago Bears. Going into this season.
My least favorite.
Yeah, of course, they've hired Matt Eberflus, who is a defensive guy coming over from the Colts. Key losses, there are a number of them. Of course, their previous head coach, Allen Robinson, Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, James Daniels. What they brought in, Byron Pringle at receiver, probably a number 2 option for them. They like Darryl Mooney at receiver. Paul, I look at this Bears team. Offensive coordinator to me is the key spot. You know, Eberflus is going to be over defense. He's a defensive head coach. Luke Getsy coming over from the Packers, their quarterback coach. He is bringing what he describes as a quarterback-driven offense. So if Justin Fields is what they thought he was when they drafted him, and you can pair him with a guy who's going to develop an offense for him, that's a step in the right direction. But I still look at what they have on offense. Is N'Keal Harry going to be anything?
No, and he's hurt.
Coming over, he's hurt. Velus Jones Jr., later in the draft, is a guy I think's got some ability from Tennessee and the type of player they need in that offense. Is he going to be able to be a surprise right out of the gates? I don't know. Cole Kmet is a reliable option at tight end. Boy, Paul, there are a lot of roster holes with this Bears team.
There's a bad roster. And look, dynamic receivers abound in the NFL, and these guys have Darnell Mooney, who actually played well without Allen Robinson last year. He caught 81 of 104 targets, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, not a great number. He's not great at contested catches. The other 2 are Byron Pringle, who comes from Kansas City where he wasn't high-ranking, and Equanimeous St. Brown from the Packers. This is not a good group. Jones maybe, emerges, but he's young. We've talked repeatedly how they failed to surround their young quarterback in Justin Fields the way so many teams have done. They bring in a defensive head coach, and he goes after defense. But you know who their biggest free agent was? A defensive tackle named Justin Jones, who they gave $6 million to. Their top 2 draft picks, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, defensive backs. Their top free agent on offense was Byron Pringle. This team didn't fortify anything, and it let people like Allen Robinson walk. So Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, could be big additions. DJ Chark never really panned out the way he should have in Jacksonville, so there's a bit of a flyer. Aiden Hutchinson, hometown hero, kind of. That's exciting. But really what you're talking about here is what you were talking about earlier with Bobby Carpenter, is the Dan Campbell storyline, the energy that the coach is bringing. Well, that only carries me for so long. The best thing about – I just shifted teams because I'm looking at Detroit up there, and I started talking about Detroit. Sorry. The Eberflus has to win people over here, starting with defense, and their defense up the middle didn't even get that much better.
Well, and the roster has so many holes. It's almost like they just admitted it's what Seattle won't admit when they try to sell that they've got a good quarterback situation, that this is a long-term rebuild, and they are fine not being competitive again this year with the lack of anything done. They just lost this offseason from last year's team that wasn't very good. They've not done much to help Justin Fields. So my hope for Justin Fields that if they're going to do that and not bring in anything to really help their young quarterback, then they at least give him the benefit of, hey, you're the guy in the long-term rebuild, right? We acknowledge that there's not a lot of help around you right now. They've got a ton of cap room going into next year. With whatever happens this year, which is probably going to be a high draft pick, and they've got a lot of wiggle room in the salary cap in 2023 that they could go out and bring in. They could pay a lot of money for guys to come in next year. But this looks like a team that won't even be competitive until 2023 at the earliest.
High. Braxton Jones, a 5th-round pick, is their top left tackle right now. So, you got to keep this guy upright as well. They've got some talent on that offensive line, but he's going to be running around Justin Fields to protect himself. I don't like them at all. I don't think that they've got any pizzazz to them. And I feel like there's just a dark cloud over this team when so many teams with young quarterbacks are doing so much to enhance their chances. I don't feel like they've done a lot.
It's not going to be easy to start the season either. They host San Francisco to open the season. Then they go to Green Bay on Sunday Night Football in week 2.
They're on TV too much. They're on primetime TV too much.
Well, they get the primetime game in week 2. Then they get Houston at home. They go to play the Giants, and then at Minnesota, and then Washington at home. So the schedule evens
the
out
Giants,
a bit.
Washington, that's nice.
Yeah,
for them,
after the start, but still, it's going to be a tough road for Chicago,
I
which is not that
have the
talented.
least interest in watching them of any team in the league. Justin Fields be damned.
So our next team on the list, the Detroit Lions. This is a team, Paul, that I can at least see what
now
they're
I can
trying
look at this
to do.
graphic.
There you go. Now it's time to look at the graphic, and it works now. 3-13-1 a year ago in 2021. Paul, look at this Lions roster, and I think, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. Jared Goff is still a hole at quarterback, I believe. He's only 27 years old, by the way. Feels like he's been around a lot longer than that. He's much older. 27 years old. Aiden Hutchinson, the number 2 overall pick, hometown kid. Jamison Williams, I believe, is going to be a stud. He's not going to be ready to play until October, probably at the earliest. He had a January ACL tear. Jalen Reese-Maven out, Anthony Lynn out as offensive coordinator. But looking at this Lions team and watching them on Hard Knocks, which is highly entertaining if you haven't watched it, Paul, I feel like you can see the path for them to make something happen. DeAndre Swift is a playmaker running back. TJ Hawkinson, a very good tight end. They're not there yet, obviously, but it looks like a team that, unlike the Bears, they're going to win 2, 3, 4 more games than they did a year ago.
Well, I think they've got some guys who kind of take on the coach's identity and start to spread the message now. You mentioned Hawkinson, Penei Sewell, who was a big draft pick for them last year, sets the tone for that offensive line, right? Jamison Williams, once he's around, can. And then on the defensive side, they've got some guys, and Aiden Hutchinson is going to be the poster boy for that team. So there's a spine there. But Jared Goff is not part of that spine. Jared Goff threw 25.2% of his passes beyond 10 yards last year, the lowest in the league. This is not a Detroit team that plays outside. They play in Ford Field, a lovely indoor stadium that I've visited. That is terrible. 70% red zone touchdown allowed last year. They've got to fortify that, and they've got a weak interior defensive line. They've got a lot of work to do. You know who loves the Lions outside of people who are into the Dan Campbell thing, which I'm not? Maybe it'll change as I catch up on Hard Knocks. Bettors. And that's where some of the Lion love is coming from. 17 games, all 17 games last year, Chad, they were a dog, and they went 11-6 as a dog against the spread.
Well, they had 6 losses, so 6 of their 13 losses were by a touchdown or less. So that leads into them covering the spread a lot a year ago. I like where they're headed. We're going to get into, I believe, Monday, we're going to get into the Packers and the Vikings in this division. But I feel like this division's pretty clearly slotted in terms of where people are going to finish, with a minor question mark about Minnesota and Detroit for second. Are the Lions in position to contend for second place behind the Packers in this division would be my one question. I think the Bears are squarely last. As crazy as that might sound with the Lions' recent history, I think they're better than the Bears, and they're going to finish ahead of them in the division.
This would be a really fun conversation if we each came in and we ranked the divisions as to how predictable a division finish there is. And I think you're on to something here.
I think it's one of the more predictable divisions.
This is a very predictable division. I would bet on Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears in that order. I feel very confident in that.
Yeah, me too. I going back to the Bears also, for Justin Fields, how do you even define success this season other than just making it through the year and not looking completely inept? Like getting out alive with his offensive line, with a lack of weapons. Like what I want to see is Luke Getsy at least designing something that looks like it would work for Justin Fields, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't even know what that looks like statistically or from a win-loss perspective for the Bears, but I want to see at the end of the year and think, man, they brought in Luke Getsy. He's got a plan, and it is driven around the quarterback. And the quarterback at least looked like this is something he could manage if he had better talent around him.
And sticking with the offensive coordinator, in Detroit, Anthony Lynn was really bad last year, really bad. Dan Campbell took over for him late and made a lot of changes, some of which were odd. They went really run heavy on third down. Not that they were in third and short, but Anthony Lynn did not do a good job. He got play calling taken away from him, and Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator there now. I don't know how much of a resume he has. I don't know much about him, but clearly a lot needs to change from what Anthony Lynn was failing at last year, where he got it taken away by his head coach.
So I'm watching Dan Campbell do the up-downs with the team to start a practice. I'm not a huge fan of that. Never have been, with the coach like doing all the drills, with the players. But typically it's the position coach in college. I've always laughed at the young wide receiver coach in college that puts the gloves on and goes to jugs machine with the players and running routes out there with them. I think that's a little bit overblown when that happens. There's something about Campbell doing it that I don't have as big of an issue with it, but you'll see this when you watch Hard Knocks ball. The funny thing about it is he says that he injured his wrist falling at home, and that as he agreed to do the up downs, he realized, I don't know if I can do these because my wrist hurts so bad. So he's taping his wrist afterward because it's such an old man thing. He fell at home and couldn't do the up downs, but he said he was going to do it, and he tried to do it anyways and fought through it, and his wrist was even worse off in the end.
Yeah, I don't need to see coaches do it. Sean Jefferson, whose son Van Jefferson is with the Rams now and who was a pretty good NFL receiver, he did it one day when he was a Titans assistant coach. I don't know if he's on the Miami staff any longer. He put on cleats, and they talked about it for a long time, and the receivers were egging him on. He got knocked on his ass in like 3 minutes. And then he's a laughing stock. And do your guys lose some respect for you? I don't know, but it doesn't help.
We need to make this a poll question. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you not care? When your coach does it, it doesn't really matter to you one way or the other. My initial reaction to it every time I see it is, you don't need that. Like, especially from the head coach. You don't need that from the head coach necessarily. Position coach are going to get in there and work a drill and show hand placement. That's coaching, all of that. But like doing the calisthenics with the team, in line, in formation with the team as the head coach, I don't know. I don't think it's warranted.
Players are expected to say all the time, coaches coach and players play. So I could see entirely players say, flipping it.
Yeah.
Coaches coach and players play. So why is the coach playing? It's annoying. It's embarrassing. As Tajay Sharp, one of my favorite middling Titans receivers,
the philosopher Tajay Sharp. Let's quote him.
Stay in your lane.
That's right. He is the Keats of
he said
NFL
this.
receivers.
He said this right before he bought time at some recording studio and rapped, because he was a well-known rapper staying in his lane while he's a wide receiver in the NFL.
Long known as the Henry David Thoreau of the Titans wide receiver room, Tajay Sharp.
Stay in your lane.
Titans played a game last night against the Ravens, and a lot of the talk, not just here in Nashville, but across the league, people wanted to see Malik Willis because he was a guy many thought in the process leading up to the draft could be a high first-round pick. He fell to the third round of the Titans. He got extensive playing time last night. We'll talk about Malik Willis's performance and what we saw between the Titans and the Ravens. When we return, this is OutKick 360 across the OutKick Network. So the Titans lose in Baltimore to the Ravens last night. I'm not going to say the final score because it really does not matter. None of these final scores matter in preseason in the NFL. It's all about rookies, guys trying to make the roster, players to watch. And Paul, in this game for the Titans and really across the league last night, I feel like Malik Willis was the guy to watch. He got extensive playing time, and it's kind of a mixed bag we're left with his performance. What were your thoughts?
Well, Ryan Tannehill's got nothing to worry about. Early indications are not that we thought he had anything to worry about. Malik Willis really made 3 plays, right? He scored a 7-yard touchdown where he started to boot right, saw 2 guys, reversed course, saw, hey, I could get into the end zone here pretty easily at the left pylon, did so. His helmet kind of got knocked into a funny position, and he, for some reason, walked around with it off kilter for some time without adjusting the chin strap, which I thought was weird. Another play through, 48-yard, very nice ball to Racey McMath. Now, it was a very good throw, but it wasn't a pinpoint. It didn't have to be a pinpoint throw because for some reason the cornerback that was following Racey McMath for Baltimore decided to cut. He perfectly covered the area between Racey McMath deep and the underneath receiver below him. So if Racey McMath was on 1 yard line and this other wide receiver was on another yard line, this guy split the difference and covered the area in between in a very bad defensive play.
It was also an odd-looking play because Racey McMath kind of caught it. It was almost like it surprised him that he was so open and caught it and just sort of hit the deck.
Left his feet
His momentum
and
was
slid.
going, and I'm thinking, you really didn't have to slide. You probably could have cut it up a little bit. He wouldn't have scored a touchdown or anything, but it's almost like him being that open and the way the defensive back played him shocked him even on the play.
The thing about a guy doing something like that on a deep ball always is a little bit of uncertainty about his hands. When a guy unnecessarily jumps or slides or something like that, it usually is a tell that he's not as confident as he should be about his ability to haul it in. Then he had another nice rollout where he had an inside linebacker coming directly at him, and he really lowered his arm and threw a sidearm pass to complete a ball to Tommy Hudson, who I think then got hurt as he carried the ball out of bounds on a crossing route. So those were 3+ plays. But they weren't intending to play him in the second half. They played him into the second half because they wanted to see him throw it more, and then he got pulled in the middle of a series because of his reluctance to throw the ball. This is not a good sign for Malik Willis. Look, it's early. He's got a lot of time, all of that. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's not going to get down, all of that stuff. But the play before he got pulled, he had Des Fitzpatrick open, if you were watching it, at the bottom of the screen to his right. And then he had Traylon Burks, who didn't have a catch, dragging across the middle of the field, both wide open. And he did not throw the ball. He had a reluctance to throw the ball. He's counting on his feet too much. He said as much after the game. I thought it was very odd. Here's that play, if you're watching. First receiver was open at the bottom, and then Burks coming across the middle. Didn't throw it to either. And Vrabel, I think that was the straw that broke his back. He said after the game, when he was asked why he took him out in the middle, he said, because I wanted him to throw it, and he wouldn't. So I put in Logan Woodside. Now, Logan Woodside, to me, he just gets off scot-free here. I mean, his knowledge of the playbook puts him in position to make crap throws more than anybody I've been around. He had a bad night.
Two picks.
The first pick, which he throws intended for Terry Godwin, is near the goal line, a deep ball. He's got a clean pocket when he decides to throw it. Godwin apparently did the wrong thing by cutting in, but he didn't make that cut until after the ball was in the air. So Woodside was throwing it to that spot. It's a terrible throw. It had no loft on it to give Godwin a chance to go make a play on it. He was tightly covered. Awful throw. Mason Kinsey, he threw a ball that was a very contested catch across the middle where a DB got his hand in it, popped it up to another DB who caught it. And then another really bad play, a similar throw to the throw to Godwin, where he had Traylon Burks one-on-one with a scrub-ranking quarterback in the fourth quarter, where it was clear it was going to be a you get it or nobody gets it situation. Yeah, this is a dream scenario, right? You're going to get to throw a touchdown here to a premier, first-round pick with a big size advantage. Throw it up there, put some loft on it, let him go get it. Again, a flat ball with no real chance. I thought Woodside looked like crap last night. And they were making a lot of excuses for him about the pressure. I asked Vrabel today, if he comes into a game for Tannehill, isn't he going to face pressure? Isn't he going to have to deal with the pressure? So I thought it was a very uninspiring quarterback night for the Titans. And the Ravens have a big thing for winning preseason games. That was their 21st in a row.
Which is a weird stat.
Dating back to 2017 or something.
2016 or 2015, I think. Yeah, it's gone on for a while. Logan Woodside, I'll be very blunt about this. If he has to go into a game for any length of time because Tannehill's out, the Titans are losing that game. He is not a good quarterback. He may know the offense. He looks terrible. I refuse to believe that, first off, Malik Willis should win that job. I don't know that he will, but from an ability standpoint, Malik Willis, if he can learn the playbook and develop, should be the number 2 option. I also think there was a lot of overreaction last night to, now clearly Willis will be the backup. When they watch Woodside play.
He played with better players, for starters. The guy who starts that game has a big advantage over the guy who finishes it.
I'm also thinking, look, this guy is a cockroach in that he's not going to die easily either. He's liked by the coaches. He's liked in that room. He knows the offense, obviously. He studies real hard. So Logan Woodside may still very well be the backup throughout the year, but I just watch him play, Paul, and I'm thinking, this is the best backup option? There aren't other guys you could go that are undrafted free agents that have more ability than Logan Woodside? It's very odd.
Vrabel makes it sound like, today when I asked that question, he's like, he's shown command in the past. Last night wasn't great, but I'm sure he'll get back to it. I just don't recall him showing some great command of the offense in the past. And even if he has, mental command of the offense, doesn't the throwing at some point overtake the command of the offense? If you can't complete passes, if you can't deal with the pressure, I don't care what your mental command of the offense is. I think it's a practice convenience. It helps you in practice that you know the offense very well. But I'm going to need to see a lot better in the next 2 games. And Vrabel said, that's a competition for the second spot. And there's roster complications there if you keep 3. So I would think, again, the difference is if you come into a game to relieve Tannehill, I think Malik Willis could be fine there with a limited ask, Read half a field with 2 guys and then take off, hand off to Derrick Henry a lot before that. It's the preparing for 4 games if Ryan Tannehill's out that would be, I think, a bigger struggle for Malik Willis, even with the pared-down playbook. And I think they think right now that Woodside could do more given those circumstances. Though I think a lot of us have reason to doubt it. It would be a big ask of either of them.
Yeah, it's – look, I first off, anytime I get into the second half of this preseason games, I'm always thinking, why am I watching this?
It's so painful.
Why am I doing this? And even watching – but Charles Davis, who I love, and Dan Hellie, who do a really good job, Corey Curtis, they do the best they can with these games. But it's almost painful for me to watch them have to call these games when they get in the second half at times.
They're also obligated to tell you that everybody that they discuss has been doing really well in camp. So I like those guys, but I wish they had a little more latitude to say, actually, this guy hadn't done a damn thing so far. Yeah. So it's impressive. That we're seeing.
You're definitely going to get the positive
here.
Slant at all times with team paid for announcers in this setting for a preseason game.
But it's far better than it used to be that they hire 2 outside pros and have Corey on the sideline. It's nice. Corey and Dan sound too much alike to me. So once in a while, I don't know who's talking. I need one of them. Corey needs to put on a fake voice.
Well, they really implement him in the broadcast from the sideline. I mean, he's kind of a third analyst. Yeah, so they do a good job of going to him. Paul, you asked Mike Vrabel a question today about Tom Brady, and he didn't want to talk about Tom Brady. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just asked him, and I mean, it's a nothing question, but, he and Tom Brady are very close friends, and it's been fun to watch them interact the last couple of years as the Titans practiced with the Patriots in his last year, and they practiced with the Bucs, I think 2 years in a row. And the Bucs are coming to town for practices Wednesday and Thursday, and then for a game Saturday night. Brady, with his 10 days away, is obviously not going to be in Nashville. So at the end of the press conference, I said, are you kind of disappointed that Tom won't be here? And he said, I'm worried about the Titans, turned into Belichick. And I said, the Titans are practicing with the Bucs on Wednesday and Thursday. So it makes it
Speaking
kind of
those Titans that you're worried about.
thing. And then he just gave me the glare. And then an instigator on Twitter says, did anybody ever get more silent answers from Vrabel and Kuharski? And I said, if you actually count it out, it evens out. Ask the press. We all get them sometimes. And that wasn't like me asking the hard question. That was me asking a fluff question. And to their credit, the rest of the media corps all chimed in and said, happens to me, happens to me, happens to me, happens to me. Vrabel, if he's not in the mood for your question, will give you a shutdown and a glare. And quite frankly, if you don't get that, what the hell are you doing out there?
Well, a good point. But also, you mentioned Belichick. He had a very interesting exchange with a reporter asking about the process to decide who's going to call plays. We'll talk about that a little bit later also. And he just said it's a process.
The process.
And the reporter did a good job asking follow-up questions to get to the bottom of what that process looks like. And Belichick was not going there. We're going to Austin Price of VolQuest.com next. Welcome back. Final hour of the week here on OutKick 360 on the OutKick Network. And we are live in our 6th and Peabody studios, downtown Nashville, with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. Alongside Paul Kuharski, I am Chad Withrow. And each and every week on Friday, we talk some Vols football and SEC with VolQuest.com's Austin Price. Now, Austin's got his background blurred right now, but I was surprised to see before he blurred his background that there's no Christmas tree up.
Well, we could see it. Even blurred, we would see green
see the
and
lights
tinsel.
And the green and the deck, all of it. All the accoutrement would be on the Christmas tree. So, Austin, why are you slacking so much? It's August. Come on. It's almost Christmas time.
I don't know. My wife's right over here. I should ask her why she's slacking. She's the one who always puts them up.
Yeah, Austin's like, it's football season. It's camp. I'm a little busy. Maybe get this Christmas tree up behind me before next week when I join these guys. It is a busy time for the Vols right now, Austin, and you've been covering practice. I know they had a scrimmage. Josh Heupel, a former quarterback. Typically, former quarterbacks are very tough on their quarterbacks when they become a coach, and they're sparing with their praise of their quarterbacks. I don't know that Josh Heupel has been someone that's sparing of praise, but boy, did he go really over the top when he talked about Hendon Hooker's performance and his control operationally of what Tennessee's trying to do.
Yeah, very happy with Joe Milton as well. And for a true freshman, happy with Taven Jackson. I think on the whole, Coach Heupel is very pleased with where things are. They're just so much further along than they were a year ago, and you'd expect them to be. Year two in the program, stability with the coaching staff, a lot more playmakers this year than a year ago. Now, that don't mean they don't have questions, because they do, but it all starts and ends at that quarterback position, Chad, and Hendon Hooker carries himself like the starter. But when you look at the 1-2 punch between he and Milton, as far as like pure experience, you'd have to say Tennessee's got one of the better quarterback rooms in the country, just based off of experience alone.
Austin, they're talking about playing faster this year in year two, now that they're getting more accustomed to the offense. That was my question. I don't know what that looks like, because when they were humming last year, I don't know if you can snap it any quicker than right when the umpire comes off the football, or the ref comes away and says it's okay to snap it. How much quicker can they go?
I think they can go a little bit faster, but I think ultimately the biggest thing is just being efficient. Can they be more efficient? Can they not have those, sputtering times where they fall into getting so fast that, that it probably hurts them a little bit. I think the efficiency is just as important as the speed. But, they love the tempo. The tempo is what makes them tough to defend. The tempo is why, you see all these schools like Ole Miss and others laying on the ground trying to, give their defense a chance to breathe. And so you're going to continue to see the speed ratcheted up. How much faster can they go? I'm not even sure you'll notice it. But technically, I'm sure they can go a few seconds faster. It's just things I just don't think the common fan's going to pay, and even the common media person is not going to really notice. Oh man, they got that, and that drive was 116. Last year it was 119. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you're going to truly notice the difference itself. I mean, it's kind of like a NASCAR, a car going around the speedway. Can you really tell it's going 191 instead of 189? I mean, fast is fast.
You guys list about a half dozen guys who are out. You see any long range injury concerns out there?
No, I don't. When you look at this team, Brew McCoy's been limited. The last few practices. The bigger concern for him is more the eligibility part after the transfer from Southern Cal. Continue to be reiterated to me that that all things point towards getting some positive news on that front sometime the next week or so. They've missed Squirrel White. He's got a little bit of a small ankle deal, but he should be back sooner rather than later. Jalen Wright is right on pace. Don't think he'll scrimmage coming up on Sunday. Think he'll probably be held out of that, but should be a full go for full contact. He started to return to a lot of the periods he's not been participating in that are not full contact the last couple of practices. Expect him to be back for full contact sometime in the next 7 days or so.
Austin Price, VolQuest.com. Our guest. Austin, where are we at left tackle right now with Tennessee, and what, I know you weren't there for the scrimmage, but what you're hearing about the scrimmage and where that position may be at this moment?
Well, I think what you're going to see is both guys play against Ball State and see, like, when the live bullets start flying, how they handle themselves. J.J. Crawford, Gerald Mincey. Crawford got the run with the first team, so to speak, in the scrimmage, and then Mincey went in, with other starters as well later in the scrimmage. It's a two-man race. They both have done things the staff really likes. They both have some room to grow, and so I think that's why this competition, so to speak, will carry itself into the season, because I think they feel good about some things that each of the guys do, but at the same time, it's different when you're not going against yourself, when you're going against a defense that's scheming you, trying to attack certain weak points. How do you handle that in the framework of a game? I think that's why you'll see both guys play, and then it'll start to work itself out at Pitt and so on and so forth.
How much better is Jeremy Banks at linebacker, and how much of that is just him growing into the position and learning it more and more for a guy that spent most of his time at running back when he got to Tennessee?
Yeah, I think he's just going to grow. I mean, when you think back, when he first got here, Chad, he was new to the position. Then you have the COVID year. I mean, I think when you look back 3-4 years from now, you're going to see a lot of players that developed a little bit slower because of the COVID year at the high school level, the college level, maybe even at the pros. So I mean, like, you factor in the COVID year, and then he started to get some traction last year, had that massive amount of tackles. I expect him to be really locked in this year. I expect him to have a big year. He's put on weight. He really is, I think, bought into what Coach Brian Jean-Marie has been preaching. And I think he sees this as a contract year. I really do. I think he sees himself going out, balling out, having a big year, and heading off to the NFL. And, I think that he's really motivated to have a big year. And really, when you look at it, I think he's got a real opportunity too, because I think Tennessee's going to be better at linebacker this year, which means that not all the pressure will be on Jeremy Banks. There'll be other players, because I think they're better with Jawan Mitchell. I think Aaron Beasley's a year better. And I think Elijah Herring helps this team sooner rather than later, the true freshman from Murfreesboro.
Willie Martinez talking about rolling guys through and not really having first, second, thirds at corner and DB. Do you make of that what he says, or is there a little bit of not having clear top guys there yet?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that I believe everything he says about how they want to recruit, like versatility. Like they don't want just a safety or just a corner. They want guys that can play kind of all over the back end. Now, what I do also buy is the fact that I'm not sure that they have any locked in guys, because to me they have a lot of quality bodies. I wouldn't call any of them like premier corners or premier safeties, but there are a lot of solid players, and there's a lot more on this team than they had a year ago. When you think about where they are with D. Williams, Christian Charles, Warren Burrell, Kamal Haddon, Brandon Turnage, Wesley Walker, Andre Turrentine, and I'm inevitably going to leave people out. Tamarion McDonald, you got the safeties, Jalen McCullough, Trayvon Flowers. I mean, like, there's a lot of players that you could conceivably see start games this year. All the ones I just named, I think, can be a starter at some point this year, which tells you they've got a lot of depth. Now they're going to figure out, where do all the pieces go? Who's your star? Right now, Tamarion McDonald is the leader to be the star. Kamal Haddon's got to get back on the practice field. I think everybody had him kind of penciled in to start at corner, but if he don't go through fall camp, it's going to be hard to start him at corner. Christian Charles, the staff loves his versatility. D. Williams, they love how much he's kind of grown from spring to now. Warren Burrell was a starter a year ago. Trayvon Flowers, Jalen McCullough, starters a year ago. Where does Brandon Turnage fit in? I mean, a lot of bodies all over that secondary. They've just got to start to fit the pieces in and try to complete the puzzle.
Well, if looking at last year's team, Austin, if I had to say the biggest negative about the defense to me was they were pretty slow in the secondary. for a lot of the season, and that really caught up to him. And I'm talking about Jalen McCullough and Trayvon Flowers, guys with a ton of experience and have been there a while, and they've been in different systems, and they have the SEC playing experience, but they looked a step slow. Are those guys faster this year? Have they added speed to the secondary? Because I think that may have been their biggest downfall on third down a lot of times last year, was they just lacked speed in the secondary.
Well, that and they just got worn down playing so many snaps. When you're naturally aren't super fast, and then you get worn down because you're having to be on the field so much because your offense plays so fast. It's kind of a catch-22. And so, yeah, I do think that Jalen McCullough is a step faster. Does that translate to more success? I don't know. I think a lot of that will depend on when the live bullets start flying out there September 1st on that Thursday night, and then really the following week when they start playing Pittsburgh, which is another Power 5 opponent who preseason ranked 16th in the coaches poll. So, for me, I just don't think we don't see enough in practice. I like to be transparent about that. Like anybody, what we see is such a small sample size. The biggest thing for me is what's going on, when we're not out there and talking to sources, talking to people in the program, who's doing well, this or that. D. Williams has had a really good week on the practice field. He's really coming on. He's starting to push. They really like Christian Charles. But you're right. How much faster can they get at safety? I have a tough time seeing it not being Trayvon Flowers and Jalen McCullough. But at the same time, I'm not sure the staff's going to do anything to the detriment of the team to where if somebody else has, got more speed and can play the position at a quicker tempo and a faster pace, they won't be in there.
Austin, I'm amazed at how the two VOLS signs on the outside of Neyland Stadium
Terrific.
make it look so much better. Paul and I were talking about this yesterday, and we're thinking about what are some little aesthetic tweaks you could make to different ballparks or stadiums that would make it look that much better. But it looks great. Where are we right now in terms of renovations, Neyland Stadium being on time for that opener here in a few weeks against Ball State?
Well, you've got the chairbacks going in the Lower West Club. I think that's going to be a neat area because, if you're sitting down there, you can go down underneath and, kind of, be inside and get your, popcorn and Coke or whatever you want to go get. And then I think the party deck's going to be really neat up top with the second Jumbotron. So all that is on pace. Are they going to have every I dotted and T crossed come September 1st? I don't know. I think all the major things that have been done will be completed, but will there be like small little things that they'll have to kind of get fixed between September 1st and the Akron game 2 weeks later? I mean, maybe. Things that you're not going to see or notice. But I think all the major attractions for the stadium upgrades will be a full go come September 1st.
Austin, I know you wrote about a couple of dates for Tennessee fans to keep in mind in terms of recruiting, with a couple of announcements coming off the board here very soon. It's been a little bit quiet lately after a frenetic pace for a while. So what are those two dates? Who should Tennessee be watching out for here making announcements soon?
It's Sunday and Monday. And, you have Ricky Gibson, kid from Hewitt-Trussville down near Birmingham. Tennessee and Georgia, like where Tennessee's at for him, heading into that Sunday announcement, sometime right around the lunch hour, 12 to 1 o'clock, depending on where you live, for the time change. And then Monday, 3 Eastern, 2 Central, Jordan Matthews will come off the board, Tennessee and Texas and Michigan, but I really don't count the Michigan Wolverines. I think it's Tennessee or Texas. And most people, when I got put in the war room, when I view it from 1,000 feet above, all signs point to Texas. But, in recruiting, the common rule is a kid from Baton Rouge is going to go where, Chad?
LSU.
LSU, right? Well, he's not going to LSU. They were a little slow, and then when they picked up the pace, he didn't just cave to the hometown Tigers. And his dad played there. But, that one just doesn't feel like he's ever going to end up at LSU, in my opinion. So he's the exception to that rule. Well, the other rule in recruiting is you follow the visits. Well, he's been to Texas about 5 times. He's been to Michigan once, Tennessee once. So the rule would be he's going to Texas. Well, I think he could be the exception to the rule there too. We'll see. I think Tennessee's way more in play than people nationally realize. But to me, it's a two-team race, Tennessee or Texas, and everybody will find out coming up Monday afternoon.
Austin, what did you make of the slight back and forth between John Calipari and Mark Stoops over whether or not Kentucky is a football or basketball school, and Mark Stoops fighting for his program and their success recently? And also, what did you make of Tennessee's response to that, to tweet something out about, being about all sports at Tennessee?
Well, I mean, all schools should take advantage of that, just like schools took advantage of the fact that Tennessee was under NCAA investigation a year ago. I mean, like you have to take advantage of when your opponents have little hiccups. I thought it was incredibly stupid on John Calipari's part. I thought it was, the right thing to do for Coach Stoops to fire back. I think it puts Kentucky in a weird spot. I mean, it'll all get handled. At the end of the day, each school probably does have a sport or two that, probably ends up, being the favorite of fans. But, listen, man, fans just want to win. You don't think Tennessee fans in baseball were coveting going to the College World Series this year and trying to make a run before they got put out? Basketball, same thing. I mean, if you're a fan of the school, you just kind of go from one season to the next. It goes from football into basketball into baseball, and then baseball into, the lake before football starts again. So, I just, again, incredibly dumb on Coach Calipari's part, in my opinion, to put himself in that position, to put Kentucky football in that position, Kentucky athletics in general in that position. It just wasn't smart. And I get, I mean, he's a big fan of his program, as he should be. Just like Coach Stoops should be proud of what they've done at Kentucky football, making them relevant, getting to 10 wins and so on and so forth. And I have no problem with him firing back. He probably should have fired back, because ultimately I think you look weak if you don't defend your players when you've been out there recruiting them for the last several years.
Where was he in this interview? I don't know if you've seen the video. I watched it today. It looks like he's just in his living room with a T-shirt on, and he's got mics around him like it's a press conference.
Like me?
Yeah, it's like Austin Price's den, and it's just John Calipari just leaned back talking into a microphone, because someone tweeted that you really need to understand the context of what he was saying. And I watched the video, I'm thinking, it's exactly as it read. I mean, everything in the quote, the context was exactly the same.
That's what I think everybody did. Everybody assumed when they saw it, surely somebody cherry picked some comments and it just looks worse than it actually was. And then you go and watch it and you're like, nope, it's exactly what it was. I just don't understand the logic in saying, even if you think that, even if you say that privately to donors, hey, we're a basketball school, and we love what Coach Stoops is doing, but Kentucky is Coach Rupp, Coach Pitino, Coach Smith, Final Fours, national championships. You still don't say that out loud.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't think it helps. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody.
The gist of what he was saying, it really gets down to this. He has the line about, hey, I'm all for them getting 10 wins and winning a bowl game and doing the things they've done. The hidden undercurrent of that is, if I have the equivalent of that in a basketball season, you're disappointed. Because Kentucky basketball, the goal is Final Four national championship every single season. And anything less is going to be disappointing. You are thrilled and doing backflips when our football team gets 9 or 10 wins, and you're happy with that. And he's right when he says it. Still shouldn't say it publicly. Well, if you're John Calipari, because we all know that and understand it.
He basically said, in so many words, football season's just a bridge to get to November in basketball season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what he said in so many words. Here's what I know. If Kentucky basketball had lost to Tennessee basketball at Rupp, Kentucky fans would have left Rupp ready to fire Cal. Kentucky fans watched Tennessee have the ball for 4 seconds against Kentucky last year and win the game. And I watched them walk out of the stadium because I was doing a hit on the CBS affiliate here in Knoxville. And it was like, oh, well, it was did you have a good time tonight? Yeah, it was a good time. I'm just telling you, the mentality would have been vastly different had it been basketball. And I think that's what Coach Cal's trying to speak to. You still just can't say that out loud because it doesn't help you.
Not at all.
Austin, we got to get that Christmas tree up next week if you join us then. So let's work on that. Your wife is slacking. Someone in your household slacking. I know you're very busy at practice every day, so make sure she gets up the Christmas decorations.
It's August 12th.
Come on, what are you waiting on here?
We're waiting on August 32nd.
Austin, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Austin Price, VolQuest.com. Always fun talking some football with him. We'll take a quick break. We come back. We're going to draft. We're going to draft those that we think are in line to get fired by their current NFL team. That's next. This is OutKick 360. Oh, yes, we are back. OutKick 360 on the OutKick Network, live from our downtown Nashville studios with Sixth and Peabody. Big thanks to everyone listening on the radio network today, watching. Mentioned it earlier, but you can now watch at OutKick.com, right at the top of the page, top right corner. You can see the show, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Wherever you are, we want to be with OutKick 360. And where the coaches that we're about to talk about want to be is still coaching their NFL teams next year. Not this season, but next season. So we decided that we are going to have a lot of talk about hot seat in college and NFL. We wanted to put together a draft of coaches most likely to get canned either this season or after this season in the NFL. Paul, I think this is a constructive exercise.
Yes.
So, shall we? Shall we begin?
I think you won the flip.
I won the coin flip before the show,
which I regret.
So I will draft first, and I think that the number one pick on this list, to me at least, as someone that's drafting number one right now, I'm going to go with who I think is the obvious, and that is Matt Rule at Carolina.
Clear cut number one.
Panthers head coach Matt Rule, 10-23 in his tenure in Charlotte. Obviously, a lot of questions about quarterback. They're bringing in Baker Mayfield. If it does not go well, he had to fire his offensive coordinator a year ago, mid-season. If it does not go well early, things are going to get late quickly for Matt Rule in Carolina. They're putting all their eggs in the Baker Mayfield basket. We'll see if that works out. Matt Rule, to me, most likely to get fired first this NFL season. Paul, you have the second pick.
Yeah, with the second pick, Paul Kuharski drafts Mike McCarthy of Dallas Cowboys.
Someone you love because of his references on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I think I'll immediately regret this pick. I don't think Jerry Jones will fire him during the season. They were 12-5 last year. They won the division. They lost a wild card game. They don't win in the playoffs, and they don't get to the playoffs often enough. They were out of the playoffs for 2 years before they lost this wild card game. I think he's got to have ants in his pants. He's dying to get another Super Bowl as an owner. Sean Payton's out there. I think he wants Sean Payton. I don't know how much it helps him to fire McCarthy and have an interim off of his staff. But I think if things go badly, and I can imagine that happening, that he won't be able to resist.
So you're combining the itchy trigger finger of Jerry Jones with Mike McCarthy's track record. I don't think it's unreasonable at all that Mike McCarthy be second on this list.
Yeah, but you're going to make a better pick than that here.
I'm going
to
go with the third overall pick. I'm going with Coach McDreamy, Cliff Kingsbury of the Arizona Cardinals. Old Cliffy is 24-24-1 in 3 seasons with the Cardinals. With the start they got off to, they were the last unbeaten team in the NFL. They had a free fall late in the season. He had a terrible performance in the playoff game. That is not going to cut it. This is a very talented roster. They should be getting better results than they are. He's got one playoff appearance, lost in game number 1 to the Rams this past NFL playoffs. It's a big season. It's a big season for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray better be doing his homework and studying to make sure he gets that requisite amount of study time in his contract. It's a huge season for Cliff Kingsbury. He's my third overall pick for most likely to get fired mid-season or right after the season.
That's a good pick. The only protection there is he just got a new deal. But we agree things are going south in the Southwest.
Without Hopkins also, that's going to make things tougher on him, tougher on Kyler Murray also.
I'm going to go to our nation's capital and select Ron Rivera of the Washington Commanders. Look, it's a messy franchise, underperformed defensively last year. He just fired a defensive line coach like a week and a half into training camp. They want us to believe everything is tidied up with their front office mess. I would like to think that Dan Snyder is thinking that better football can distract everyone from their off-field mess. And I'm not sure we're going to get better football because their quarterback is a guy named Carson Wentz, who you just can't count on.
He inspires so much confidence based on Hard Knocks in season last year. Really a guy that gets the troops fired up and going.
Oh, yeah.
Is Carson Wentz.
So if you're
Great commander, leader of men.
If you're hitching your wagon to him, I think you're hitching your wagon to danger. And I think Ron Rivera's a good coach and a good man. But I think that organization is kind of a tinderbox.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. Number 5, this is one that I'm going to say right now, and I don't regret this pick, but the wording of how it's going to end there, I think, is going to be different than fired. I'm going with Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks. Look, Pete Carroll has had a hell of a run as Seahawks coach. These are his seasons as Seahawks coach. Took the job in 2010. He went 7-9, 7-9, back-to-back years. This is when the fun started. 11-5, 13-3, 12-4, 10-6, 10-5, 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 12-4 in 2020, and then 7-10 this past season. They trade away Russell Wilson. They don't have a franchise quarterback on that roster right now. I don't think that Pete Carroll is going to, quote-unquote, get fired this season. But I'm taking him in this spot because I can see a scenario where he gets forced out as they start to plan a different future in Seattle that will involve a new quarterback and very well could involve a new head coach. Here's the other thing. They're going to be terrible. I mean, this could be a 3-14, 2-15 type terrible team for Seattle this year. I think that'll speed things up also. So while, Paul, I don't think he's going to be quote-unquote fired, this could be a retirement, I think that he is likely to get forced out this year because of the direction they're going to want to go with their future. And he's my 5th pick.
My pick at number 6 is a guy who he's got to get his team on track here, and he's got to get him into the playoffs. If he does so, he's safe. I think if they're short of the playoffs, he's in trouble. And I think if they're have a bad year, he's got to be in big trouble. It's Frank Reich in Indianapolis. They took his word on Carson Wentz last year, and it was a disaster. Now they've done better than they could have expected with the replacement in Matt Ryan, who's old, who's not going to be the Matt Ryan of the glory days of the Atlanta Falcons. Should be good enough to get them there, but the AFC is stacked. And Jim Irsay's put a lot of faith into the Chris Ballard-Frank Reich duo. If he does not get results this year, I could see patience running out.
Paul, I thought long and hard about taking Frank Reich where I took Pete Carroll. I think this is a great pick. I think that he is overrated at this point in his career. And if they free fall after the Carson Wentz deal backfired and now they free fall with Matt Ryan and they're not as competitive for a playoff spot as we think or as competitive in that division, I think that's a good name to go with. The 7th pick in our first coach to get fired draft, NFL draft. This one may surprise people, but Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, he's in his first year. But also, yes, he's in this position because it appears that Tom Brady and Bruce Arians had some sort of falling out, and Tom Brady wanted him out. So Bruce Arians gone, Todd Bowles elevated, the head coach in Tampa. Tom Brady taking 2 weeks away from training camp for reasons we don't know that were apparently discussed with Todd Bowles before training camp started. If they don't go big and big quickly, because expectations are Super Bowl when Tom Brady is your quarterback and you've already won one of them in Tampa. If things fall off this season from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles, this could be a very quick head coaching tenure for Todd Bowles in Tampa. Obviously, things weren't great with the Jets in his previous head coaching gig. I'm drafting Todd Bowles for that reason. Not because I think he's a bad coach, not because I think any of that would be fair, but because of the circumstances around him getting that job with Brady and Arians, and Brady being out on Arians and him being gone.
Well, they also have Byron Leftwich as the offensive coordinator, who was a candidate to some degree, ready to,
he was
to become the CEO.
Apparently the front runner for the Jacksonville job, too, and didn't want it. Wanted to stay in Tampa instead of taking the Jacksonville head coaching gig.
Final pick here, I'll go to the most dysfunctional organization in the league and to a first-year head coach. So we're finishing with back-to-back first-year head coaches in their second chances. Lovie Smith. It'd be crazy for Houston to fire Lovie Smith during the season anyway. But, look, Lovie Smith was not the guy they were targeting when they made a change here from David Culley. And so if Lovie Smith is not do exactly what they're envisioning, not just in terms of improving the win-loss department, but in terms of the culture and the way they win, Nick Caserio could very well, and he seems entrenched there under Cal McNair and Easterby, do another move. And it could be 2 one-year coaches in a row and them going outside, which is what they should have done when they made this hire, and finding somebody else.
Paul, I don't know a lot about Carolina's coaching staff, but I look at Matt Rule and I think that could be a quick hook. I don't look at any other names in this list and think they're getting fired right in the middle of the season, for instance, right? Most of these would be late season, right after the final game type firings.
Ben McAdoo is the offensive coordinator. Phil Snow is the defensive coordinator. I can't imagine you're excited about Ben McAdoo becoming your head coach in Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't know who's on the staff. I don't have that in front of me. I would agree with you. I think it's hard. Maybe Kingsbury if things go completely south as in season. The one thing about the in season that we thought might accelerate firings in the last month of the season is that you can, if you do make a move, begin to talk to candidates after your position becomes vacant. So it gives you a head start. But we didn't see that turn into much last year with the teams that did have early departures.
See, I think you fire a coach in the season if you are so early in the season that you feel like you have a roster that can turn it around and do something, and you think it's the attitude around the coach that's dragging you down, so you make the move to change the fortunes of your team, or you do it mid-late season because there's a guy you almost want to try out on staff or give them a chance to be the interim head coach. Here's an example. If Joe Brady worked out as offensive coordinator, as a guy everybody loved at LSU when he was calling plays there, and he wasn't fired midseason last year, if the offense is doing well, but you don't like your head coach and Joe Brady is a young guy on your staff, you fire him in mid-October, late October, to give that guy a shot at the main gig. But outside of that, I don't really see the reason.
I agree with you that Rule's the number one guy here, but part of the reason you'd be firing Rule is because he hired Ben McAdoo as his offensive coordinator. So now we need to look deeper on the staff for who would be the interim. I also think the first thing that happens in Carolina, if things are going badly, is you probably change quarterback. So say the first month goes terribly and Baker Mayfield's the quarterback. Well, then I think you get a second month with Sam Darnold as quarterback, and now you're halfway through the season. So I don't know. But I agree he's number one, and I would think he's probably gone after Thanksgiving.
It is 4:41 p.m. Central Time, 5:41 Eastern. We are an hour and 19 minutes away from Cleveland taking on Jacksonville in the preseason.
No news?
We still have no word
on
Deshaun Watson, on what the league's going to do with that appeal. And here's another story that's not been broken yet. What's going on with Tom Brady, which quite frankly surprised me a little bit. I thought some reporter would have it by now. We don't know either of those things. We'll discuss both. And also, I need advice on how to underhand pitch a softball from 35 feet away from the plate, because I'm finding it to be very difficult. and I've got a softball team to prepare for a dominant season, hopefully. That's all coming up next in our final segment of the week with OutKick 360. Final segment of the week on OutKick 360. Chad Withrow, Paul Kaharski with you. Jonathan Hutton will welcome him back on a Monday. Big props, by the way, to Colin Warner, our executive producer of our radio network, going to Red Hot Chili Peppers tonight at Nissan Stadium. I was surprised to hear they're going to be at Nissan Stadium, not Bridgestone Arena. So that'll be a cool show, Paul. Have you ever seen Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I have not. They're not amongst my favorites, though I'd be curious if I, had a freebie. But
yeah,
I imagine tickets are quite pricey. But I'm always excited when I see somebody going to see one of their favorites because I know how excited I get when I'm going to see one of my favorites.
By the way, I just made up that title. That may be. I may have nailed it. That may be his title.
What title?
Executive producer of
What
the
is your-
OutKick
what
360
is your title?
Radio Network. Yeah, Homeboy. He said, I like that. Homeboy Colin Warner headed to Red Hot Chili Peppers tonight. I do that often. I just throw out a title and hope that it sticks. News coming down from Lexington. Kentucky AD Mitch Barnhart has said that he will be available to talk with media tomorrow. Mark Stoops is already scheduled to hold a press conference that day since the football team has a scrimmage that morning. So the presser is still on, but Mitch Barnhart has added himself to the press conference where I'm sure
settle this thing once or for all.
He is going to be asked about football versus basketball at Kentucky, and there's going to be some sort of kumbaya, rah-rah moment between the athletic department, directed by the athletic director. So, Paul, we got a few minutes left in the show. We've got an hour before kickoff. Still nothing on Deshaun Watson, which leads me to believe there's not going to be anything to break in the next hour. That means we're going to see Deshaun Watson against Trevor Lawrence tonight.
We are. That will be interesting. I don't think the league likes it, but I so what? It's a preseason game. They tell us in numerous ways how irrelevant it is. So they're going to have to accept the irrelevance of him playing tonight in the big picture.
So the other news out there, obviously Tom Brady yesterday taking some time away for personal reasons. No one's reported yet what those personal reasons are. He's going to be away for 2 weeks from the Bucs camp, not coming to Nashville next week to take part in joint practices with the Titans. Will not participate in this weekend's preseason game against the Dolphins. Will not participate in next weekend's preseason game against the Titans either. So still no word on that. I have to leave here and head to a softball practice. And what I need are pitchers, coaches who have pitched in leagues before, to hit me up over the weekend on Twitter at @TheChadWithrow and let me know how to throw accurately from 35 feet off a mound in softball for someone who's never obviously played softball at that level. Fast pitch softball
flat,
I'm talking about. To a group of 7- and 8-year-old girls. It is flat, but the rules state 1 foot has to be on the mound as you throw it, which isn't a huge deal. I've thrown from a mound before.
And you have to throw underhand.
Have to throw underhanded, cannot go overhanded. And, it's very, very difficult.
Well, it's practice for
you
you
as well.
as well.
It was tricky at times, but with the girls who typically got hits, it wasn't that hard because you can kind of go. It was probably about halfway
faster
between where I am now, maybe not quite halfway, a little bit further back than halfway. But they made you a little line. That's where you pitch from in this league. Paul, you were talking about, and I want you to show the camera also as you're describing it, because I love the mechanics of how you would pitch in baseball.
When I pitched in baseball, I did all arm and just threw from my elbow darts like this. And then when I needed to
it's
get
literally
a little
dart throwing motion.
And because it was very consistent. And then when I needed maybe to get a little bit more into it, rather than striding with my opposite foot like you would like your left foot, I did it with my right foot because I didn't put any juice on the ball.
Yeah,
really.
It's like you throw a chest pass in basketball. You step, if you're right-handed, you step with the right foot when you throw it.
So I was suggesting that, but you don't feel like you could do it. I would try it.
I wish we had a camera on us in studio during the break because I was trying to go through the motions, and I'm like, I can't mentally, physically, I can't get myself to throw that accurately off the wrong foot in stepping in that direction.
But it is a challenge to throw from a distance underhand and flat.
Well, here's the big challenge.
So that's what you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I can throw it consistently, but it's going to come in a slight lob where I'm getting it at least where they could hit it, and it's not going to hit them. If I throw it on a line, I'm not confident with my accuracy that it's not either going to go low and in the dirt, or I'm going to hit them or go way outside. So I can consistently get it in a velocity that's going to be a slight arc into a strike zone. Are there
some of them
right?
that can handle the slight arc?
We're going to find out tonight. So first practice, this is practice number 2. First practice, I took them in the cage, and I could throw to them from a short distance and just see what they had. At the end of practice, I let every girl come up and bat once, and we did legit 3 strikes or 5 pitches, and I think two of the girls maybe hit it fair. They fouled off a couple, but that's not because of their lack of ability. It's
because of yours.
It's a lot about my lack of ability too, where I did not have that problem a year ago when we're pitching from shorter. So I need any and all pointers I can get from moms or dads who have coached and pitched in softball from 35 feet. That's where the mound is now, 35 feet.
Like in real life. Can I get this camera? Like in real life, there's trouble brewing for the Red Sox.
Oh, there's trouble. There's trouble for the big league Red Sox for sure. It's funny because we had a great season in spring ball, and we've all moved up into a league, and about half my team consists of girls that I coached in the last league. But I'm having to reset expectations because we knew going into that league based on our fall ball performance, we shouldn't lose a game. I mean, that was kind of what we all thought going into it with the team we had, and we got to keep everyone. I'm now having to tell those same parents we're in rebuild mode.
Can I get this camera again?
I'm announcing rebuild mode, unlike the Seattle Seahawks announcing.
Like in real life, the Red Sox are having to reset expectations.
We are. It's going to be a struggle because the parents are going to have to accept the fact that there's going to be some bumps in the road.
You'll be fine.
I'm very diligent.
These other teams are dealing with the same thing, I'm
going to show you right now. I actually have my practice plan written out and ready to go.
Quite a binder. Might be time for a new binder.
This is it right here. That's it. This is all I need.
It's good that
These
it's
are my
written
notes.
so softly that nobody could zoom in on
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different stations and periods of practice over the course of an hour and a half. And we're going to get through this, and we're going to learn how to dominate. I feel like we dominated this week. I really do. It was a lot of fun. Thank you all who watched. Thank you all who listened on our radio network. It's been a blast. Hutton, he's been away on special assignment. I need to get a new binder. Hutton will be back with us on Monday, and we're going to have plenty to talk about on OutKick 360. Thanks to our crew also, who's been terrific this week. Paul, some words.
My weekend consists of 2 practices during which I won't block the box, and I will be locking my locks. See ya!